Good morning.
Hi
Hello.
everyone, how are you?
I'm just going to move. There we go.
Oh, so I'm in shot. There we go.
There we go.
How are you?
It's done.
We're good.
It's done.
I'm just nervous that it's going to slip over then. I don't think it is.
We'll see.
All right. Hi.
Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today?
We have spent all week back and forth looking at quotes.
Quotes, or as you pointed out quite rightly, essays. Yours were quotes. Mine were like, oh, look at this long description that this philosopher wrote.
Have you ever done things like, sorry, slightly off topic, but like Myers-Briggs or things like that? So there's one that particularly I resonated a bit more with was insights.
Okay.
And in that, so a blue person, super detail oriented, always like lengths of text, very detailed, very thorough. Yellow person, a bit like, nah, it's fine, I'll wing it. Okay. And I think that's you and I.
Okay. I think I'm a bit green. Somewhere in the middle. Is there a green?
There is a green,
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, just
that
my
makes
thought
sense.
process that, we complement each other
We do.
in that respect,
Yin
I
and
think.
yang. We do.
And even we were having a conversation over text this week and about your business. And I think that we came at it from different angles, but actually recognised there was value in both angles. So
Yes, absolutely. No, partners in crime.
absolutely, I think
what it is.
I used to work with another lady called Marie, and you remind me of her a little bit actually.
Aww.
And we always were like each other's yin and yang,
Oh, that's so nice. Well, I've never had a Luke until now, so
We have a little cheers
there's
to
a
that.
lot of love in the room.
Okay, so the quote. Tell me the quote that we have settled on.
Okay, so it was a short one, which is probably why you liked it. So it was from the philosopher. What's he? A psychoanalyst. Get your words out, Katie. Carl Jung, and it was, "Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge." Apparently, he said that.
Thoughts.
What do we think about that? So my first thought, because I'm a big fan of his, I'm such a fangirl of all of his stuff, even though it was 100 years ago now. My first thought is it's probably been taken out of context because it is quite judgy.
In itself.
In
There's
itself,
an irony in it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's difficult. That's why most people judge.
Yeah.
Chew on that. It's a bit judgy.
I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's really judgy. So that would be my first thought. What would you think?
Well, one of the things that I think I replied to you with was a quote that's always stuck in my mind, and don't ask me who it's by. I don't retain that sort of information. But it is the lowest form of intelligence is judgment. The highest form of intelligence is compassion.
Yes, because that's emotional intelligence. Yeah. What? So do you agree with that?
Until you pointed out the fact that's also judgy.
Okay. You like the sentiment though?
I think the sentiment is good because I think we do live in a world that is naturally judgmental. And I also think that as humans, we are born to be judgmental. If you think about early man, you have to make judgments for survival.
Yes.
Like, can I go and cuddle that saber-toothed tiger or can I not?
Can I use that poisonous plant that's going to kill me? Or...
so we have to have judgment, but maybe discernment is a better word.
Okay, yes. Yeah, true. You have to be... Well, it's survival. You're right. It's a survival. It's an instinct, I suppose. And it's a bit tribal, isn't it? Like, if I'm with my safe gang, then we're all looking out for each other. We've got each other's backs, and the rest of you can't get us. There is a tribal survival thing, isn't there?
From a place of fear. But the fear was necessary at the time.
Yeah.
I guess the time that we would develop the instincts, the fears were valid.
Yeah.
We don't live in a world at the moment that we are lucky that we don't. I'm not saying that people don't. That we have to think about our lives every day.
No, this is true. Or we don't have to think about survival in the same way. You literally just go to the supermarket. In fact, you don't even go to the supermarket. You go online, you go, I want that, that and that. And then somebody brings it to you.
It's very different.
Literally, there's no hunting. There's no need to pursue survival.
So I think that judgment has then been displaced. Because we still have the instinct.
Yeah.
But it falls elsewhere. And so what do we use it for? Generally bitchiness.
And is that serving us as humanity, Luke? What do you think?
The answer is no, the end. Nice to see you all. Bye-bye.
Yeah. If only it was that easy.
I know.
No, you make a really good point, because I've thought for a while that actually in the modern world, I think one of the biggest survival skills is self-awareness, because once you know how you are and how you show up and how you behave with people, you understand how they are, and then you're going to get along better in this world where it is all about connection and sort of coming together in civilization and society. We're not hunting, we don't need to be tribal. not in sort of where we live. It'd be interesting if we did. But yeah, that's kind of what I think self-awareness is. And I wonder if that's what that quote is talking about. It's the thinking, is the self-awareness.
My perspective of growing up is I was never taught self-awareness. I was never taught it from my parents. I was never taught it at school. If anything, I was taught to be egocentric. And so then when I got into employment, or even silly things like when I first house share at uni, you know, and I look at, oh God, they were big lessons because I was never taught that.
Yeah.
And then when I particularly started working in the HR environment, it was like, boom.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, well, that's awareness central, right? Because you're always all about the people.
And then having to work on other people's self-awareness and feedback and, you know, and everything else. Like, that massively changed me. And I think had I not done that, I would probably still be as egocentric as I was when I left home at 18.
Okay. So that was a part of, because I know you struggled with that job, and
but I did it for 13 years.
Yeah. But that was a part of the job that you were glad for, because it sort of opened your eyes. Is what you sounds like. What you're saying.
I think the one thing that it did do for me is it really helped me understand people, and therefore helped me understand myself.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. So you came at it from the other angle, and then you understood yourself. Whereas I think my journey has been trying to understand how I am and how I behave, and then applying that to how other people behave. That's really interesting that you came around that way.
I think so. I mean, it's probably the first time I've had this conversation out loud, but I think so.
Yeah. So. But
then, of course, the stuff that I do in terms of my work now, that's a whole other level. And of course, all of that has been about working on myself. Yeah. Even when I'm working with other people, it's about working on myself. Yeah.
So in what ways are you doing that, and how are you finding that beneficial?
Oh, that's a big question.
Sorry. You can answer a different one, or just ignore it and do something.
I think there are a few aspects, and I've been triggered this week. I've had a niffy week.
Breathe.
Yeah. So at the moment, I manage a team of people. I say manage; it's not like I employ them. In a roundabout, very not black and white way, I kind of do. But and then on top of that, I then manage all the bookings. So a lot of that is people interaction, but it's formalised people interaction rather than the bit that I love doing, which is come to my class and let's all do things together and grow together and have a nice peaceful experience and leave all's end. You know, but when it comes to the business side of things, it's really hard to have that mentality on the business side, because on the business side I need to have boundaries, I need to have people operating in harmony, I need to have a business mind to be able to physically keep the doors open of the place, because a lot of people, I find particularly a lot of people, if you're part of a big corporation, if you as a customer you can't get to the top of that chain to talk to somebody to make a decision, right? There's barriers. So often people don't challenge big companies because they're like, well, I can't get to the top, so what's the point? But I find that as a small company where people can directly access me, people push a lot more, or try to take advantage a lot more, or give a sob story a lot more, and you know, and it's not that I don't resonate with some of the things that people are going through, but equally I can't take financial responsibility for people's personal circumstances.
Yes, absolutely.
And that for me is where I feel really jarred around wanting to work with humans because they're humans and embrace humanity and being human and being loving and supporting and kind, versus, but if I'm so understanding and loving and supporting and kind of people's personal circumstances, I would have to give everything away for free and I wouldn't be able to open the doors.
Yeah.
So that's really tricky for me. And then so going back to this judgment thing, what's been really hard is because I've heard everything under the sun, like through my HR career and through running a business. And then I get to the point where I have to operate with discernment, I would say, about, so if this person's got a extenuating circumstance, might have heard this story 6 times before, is it true? Yeah. Energetically, can I connect with them? Do I feel like they're being truthful with me? And then that is really contradictory to the way that I want to operate a business, which is through kind of honesty and mutual respect and
integrity.
And so I am constantly jarred between these things, and subsequently I financially lose out quite a lot because I'm like, oh, all right.
I know, but it's so hard.
It's so hard. So for me, that's really difficult, and I think that's how I have to use judgment in my business. But I haven't mastered it by any means. I have and I was properly triggered this week. So
I think what you've described is common with a lot of small business owners, and I've certainly felt it in my past job as a copywriter, like doing my own copywriting for businesses. People will go, oh, go on, can you just fit this in? Because they know me, and I think that's sort of natural to a certain extent. But also, I think what you're describing, as you were talking, I was thinking about the clash between sort of the humanity side of it and the purpose and the passion that drives your business, and then the business side and the commerce and sort of the way the world works nowadays, which is very money focused. And, you do have to have a kind of a cold business streak to be able to make that work, and it's a clash, I think, for people really like you and I who are sort of heart led. We want to be in this position because we really want to help people, but we also do have to make money. I mean, just this week I was sitting and talking to my lovely brand lady Becky, and we were talking about pricing for my new business, which is being launched soon. I will be talking about it soon, but I said, well, I think this, and she said, well, I think that's not enough, Katie. And I'm like, really? I don't know. Like, I don't know. And she had a really good conversation with me, because she said, I think you have to remember your attitudes to money are not necessarily going to be the same as everybody else's. And it's about the right balance, about charging appropriately for your time and, the energetic swap of what you're doing for people and not undervaluing that. But, as somebody who is heart-led, like you are as well, you're like, the money. If the money would just go away, life would be so much easier for people like you and I think. Because it does trigger all those uncomfortable feelings, including judgment. You're like, oh God, just pay me so I can run a business.
And then on top of that, if I were to make a decision that was not in the favour of the other person, I then spend like 2 nights awake judging myself about the whole situation.
I know.
So I find it really hard. So it really plays deep on me, and it's such a juxtaposition.
Clash was fine.
Juxtaposition. I like the word juxtaposition. I just can't always say it. The two things. And I actually set the intention that by the end of the year, I'd like to have a business manager that just does all that.
I think that's a really smart idea, because it separates you and what you're giving from the business, and it's not like, it's the same, you just said it a minute ago. Say you went to buy a shirt in a shop or something. It's not like you take it up to the checkout and go, well, I like that shirt, but I don't want to pay that much for it, because the cashier's just going to go, well, that's the price, and a business manager is going to do that sort of thing. Well, that's just what it costs. It's just what it is. So, and there has to be, I think, some sort of logical separation. Who is it? I was reading about an actor years ago who pretended to be his own agent for ages, which I thought was such a good idea. And he had a separate email account, and so he would be his own agent. He would talk himself up, and he'd get the big jobs, because he had to make that logical separation between himself and the business side of it. But he couldn't afford an agent, so he pretended.
Genius. I
need to find out who that was, because that was such a good idea.
Okay, so if I have a business manager.
Not Luke at lvlife.com. There we go.
Funny. But I did for a while. I had someone, my friend Karina, who I went to uni with, when she was furloughed, I was topping up her furlough pay, because I got 80% or something on furlough, I can't remember. So I used to top up her pay, and then while she was furloughed, she used to do all my admin.
Oh, okay.
And it was mutually beneficial throughout that time. And actually, that really allowed me to lean into doing what I do for the purpose that I do it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not in a financial position to do that at the moment, but that is my intention for the end of the year, is to get somebody else managing the business.
That would be awesome. And the thing is, again, it's about alignment, isn't it? So that person will love doing that job for you. They'll feel a sense of purpose and like, great, I'm really pleased to be doing this.
Karina loved it, and she was so good.
Yeah, exactly. So you're doing what you love, they're doing what you, and it just works.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll just, that's on my intention to get the money to afford someone to do that.
Yeah. So then thinking about the quote again, thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge.
Did we go off piste again?
I think we possibly did a little bit. But no, you talked about judgment. We're talking about judgment. So I think it is, we've just described how judgment kind of comes to the surface even when you don't want it to necessarily.
Because it's an instinct within us. I think it's just there.
It is.
I also don't think things like media help with judgment. You pick up a magazine, this person's too fat, this person's too thin, this person's this or that, or, you know, this about their personal life, or this, you know. And also the other thing, aside from that, is we don't know how much of that is actually real or what's staged. But
exactly.
However, regardless, it's still, we buy judgment.
We do, yes, that's very true, actually.
We literally pay for judgment.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right.
Even if you watch a soap opera.
Yeah. Do you? Which one are we talking?
Not anymore. I used to watch Hollyoaks.
Oh, you're Hollyoaks.
And Neighbours.
Oh, Neighbours, but yeah. Neighbours, Home and Away.
No, I didn't do Home and Away.
Shortland Street. I used to watch that with Mum.
What is that?
That was in New Zealand.
Ooh.
Kia ora. It's very nice.
Fancy.
Yeah, you're right. We pay for judgment. You know, even in the form of like each newspaper, if you still buy them or follow them or read them.
People still buy newspapers?
Do they?
I don't know.
Maybe on a Sunday with a cup of coffee. But, you know, each one has a bias, which is judgment.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, where do you go to get unbiased information these days?
And I think, and this is maybe another tangent, a lot of people now are being led to figure it out on their own, or to find community with views and opinions that they resonate with, because I think that we've come to a point with the media where we realise we can't trust it.
I think it's a tricky one. I'm not comfortable. I always question. Let's put it that way. I prefer to question what I'm being told than just to accept it as true. I think we always have to. Yeah. I think we always have to question.
And then, as you say, where do we then go to find the truth? And I don't know if we'll ever know that.
Yeah. Well, in a room with somebody, face to face. And then you use your own judgment skills.
Discernment.
So maybe we do need that, you know. So maybe there are two sides to judgment. It's actually survival skills still, even though we said at the beginning it wasn't. Again,
though, for me, I'm like, I think there's a differentiation between discernment and judgment. And I think that we naturally lean into judgment. Discernment for me is an instinct.
So discernment is analysis of some description. It's like it's sort of applying a critical eye to something, whereas judgment is having an opinion already formed.
I think discernment is your instinct. Okay. I don't know if I would call it an analytical thing. Maybe it is for some people. Maybe that's the difference between you and I.
I don't know why I'm quite intuitive.
But for me, I feel it that it's an instinctive thing. I think it's something that we're born with. I think it's when you talk about gut instinct or whatever type of instinct you talk about. That for me, I wouldn't call judgment.
Okay. Intuition.
Intuition's another good word.
Yeah. So it comes from that sort of gut place. You're not quite sure where it comes from, but it's
a place somewhere.
A place. Lovely.
Yeah, but in human design, so we talk about different kinds of intuitions, and some people have a splenic authority, which is what I have, which is a bit like the early man authority, where you have to kind of make fight or flight decisions, so you get that instant response to something. And then we have a gut instinct where we have to lean into it and feel it, and then
that's more me, I think. I have to wait, don't I?
So there are all these different types of instincts in human design, which I really resonate with, because again, to think that we're all the same and do things the same way is ludicrous to me.
No, we don't. No. But then that's where the thinking comes in. So coming back to that original quote, thinking is difficult. We do have to think about how other people think in order not to judge.
Yeah, so actually this has come up in a tarot reading I was doing yesterday. I think that we are never taught to look at the other person's perspective. And I think that's where a lot of judgment comes from. So when someone, to just quote one of my favourite words, my one's being a moron, I'll just make Katie cringe.
We had a conversation about that this week.
I know, it's one of my
morons.
favourite words at the moment, morons. Okay, they might be wrong, let's deem it wrong, but why do they think like that? Why do they act like that? What's going on for them? Where does that come from? And I think we're never taught to look at their journey, their story, their lens.
Yes.
Right, so maybe, you know, they were raised in a very narrow-minded community. Maybe they have been through some life experiences that have left them to be guarded or to think and feel a different way. Maybe they don't trust, you know, and so their lens is totally different to ours.
Yeah.
So then my judgment would be, you're a moron. But actually, what I would encourage people to do, and I obviously need to practice what I preach, is then, but why are they that way?
But
what sits behind that, you know?
I think you do that. You're talking about that. So I think you do that.
I'm just using humour when I use the word moron. I don't really mean it some days.
There we go. Okay, the truth's coming out now. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we're not taught self-awareness. I remember the first time I sort of came across the concept, which was in that book that the Dalai Lama co-wrote, The Art of Happiness, with Howard C. Cutler, who was a psychologist. And it was in that book that he said to Howard, because it's like a series of interviews, he said, all human beings are trying to avoid suffering in some way. And when you kind of, that just really struck a chord with me, because I suddenly thought, wow, you can then see if that is the motivation for people to avoid suffering, rather than actively seek pleasure, which is a different thing, or happiness. To avoid suffering is underpinning everything that we do. If you assume that to be true, you can go, well, that's why that person said that thing, and that's why they're behaving in that way, because that's triggering this. They're sort of trying to avoid suffering in some way. You know, even atrocious acts and crimes and all sorts. And it's how far then you choose to take that level of empathy and compassion, because you still have to protect yourself and your own morals, and I don't know. But I would agree with you, I think, from my own experience. We're not taught it, and it was a revelation to me. Oh wow. And it changed how I show up with people and how I talk to people.
I think another thing that's been really talked about a lot lately, and I'm conscious of only because I know several people that have had this challenge, is that neurodiversity is suddenly exploding in terms of awareness of it, in terms of diagnosis of it, in terms of more research into it. And I often, and I can definitely look back in my past and think of times when I've been frustrated with people or I've judged people. And then I think, actually, in hindsight, it could be a neurodiversity issue going on there. They might not be able to behave in another way. It's not something they're consciously doing to be a moron. It's something that is, their brain is different in that sense. And, you know, we're exploring neurodiversity for my daughter. In fact, tomorrow she's going for her assessments. And so I've really, probably in the last few years, really opened my eyes to that whole world as well. And so again, it just boils down to when I feel like I'm judging someone, what is going on for them.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and also I would say for you as well. So where is that coming from for you, and what's going on for them, and how can we get sort of through this?
Yeah, it's a very, very good point, because you know, this week particularly, I said I've been triggered. Something also that coincides with that this week is that I take some herbal supplements for mental health, and I went cold turkey last week because I run out and the post hasn't been delivered.
Oh, okay.
And I only got them back yesterday.
Okay.
And so I went a week without them, and you know, had a meltdown.
Oh.
And then I feel totally fine today. So,
oh, good. There we go.
Yeah. And so again, what's going on for me? What's going on for them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's awareness. Awareness again. I really believe that awareness piece is big, and that it can change for the better your interactions with other people.
The thing is, we're never all going to perfectly get along.
Nope.
We'll always meet people that jar us, that reflect something back at us. Okay, let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
I can see your synapses firing there. Go.
Okay, the belief that things are being mirrored back to us. When we experience behaviour that we don't like, it's the universe mirroring something back to us. Go.
Well, yes, again, Carl Jung talks about that sort of thing a lot. When you see something in somebody else that triggers you in some way, it could be your shadow, I think he would call it, sort of the maybe the dark parts of yourself that you don't really want to fully acknowledge exist, but that do, being sort of rearing up. So the judgment can often be something that is within you that you haven't fully made conscious. So yes, I totally believe, if that aligns with what you're saying.
Conscious is really interesting, and this will depend on your belief system, but I believe that we hold a lot of things from past lives as well that we wouldn't even be consciously aware of in this life.
Okay.
So sometimes if we're getting triggered, it could be something that is... And the other thing, there's two avenues to this, because from a... what's the word I'm looking for? From a scientific perspective, there's also a lot of study happening at the moment about generational trauma.
Yes, and how it's sort of blueprinted into the body and parts.
So I think they're talking about we can go back 7 or 9 generations.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, so I can't remember if it's 7 or 9, it's one or the other. But so if we're carrying that scientifically through in our cellular structure, again, we might not be consciously aware of what's triggering us, and it might not actually be our trigger. It could be from like great-great-great-grandpa or whatever, Which
makes perfect sense if you think about it, because what is instinct? Actually, what does anybody ever sort of studied it scientifically? I don't know, but it's got to have some sort of roots in that precise thing. So if somebody grows up in an environment that's really dangerous or unstable, then their genetics, their offspring, is going to be different and more, engineered. Is it for that sort of environment? That's surely how it works. In some way.
In its simplest form in nature, instinct just happens. How does the baby know to suckle? Right, that's just an instinct. No one said you need to do this. In any mammal, the baby just knows. It's instinct. Bizarre. But there's so many things like that in nature that are just instinctive, and you're right, where do they come from?
Yeah, exactly.
So it does make sense that generationally it sits in our cellular structure. Yeah,
and it doesn't have to sound like, it doesn't even have to be spiritual or sound a bit woo. It could just just be science. Yeah.
That absolutely. Part, and then the woo side of it would be that we live many lives and we carry stuff from other lives.
Yeah.
But either way,
who knows?
We are, science and spirituality, I guess, are agreeing that we can hold on to stuff that isn't ours.
Yeah. Do you know, on that subject, I shared a podcast just this week on my page with Rangan Chatterjee, who I love, who is a former GP and sort of a wellness expert. And he was talking to a lady called Dr. Tara Swart, who is in everything. She's a neuroscientist, she's a doctor, and now she's exploring, she's chatting with people from her scientific background. She's chatting with people about past lives. She's going to talk with people and with children who talk about having lived before, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up when I was listening to this. She's one of my people because she brings it all together, the science and the spirituality and
there's such a fine line between the two. Such a fine line between the two.
Well, science is an exploration of things that we don't fully understand. And that's exactly what spirituality feels like to me anyway, stuff we can't explain.
And I don't know if the two will ever meet and agree, but I think there are certain aspects where they're exploring the same thing, but just from a different perspective.
But do they, that's part of the quest, isn't it? Like the drive, the passion, the reason we live is to figure it all out. We don't know the answers, and that's part of the excitement, at least I think so anyway.
Yeah. I don't even know if we're going to know the answers when we die either.
No, who knows? Yeah. You won't be able to tell me and I won't be able to tell you. It'll just be...
Unless we're there together. Yeah, like, hey, look what we learned.
And we'll never be able to plan that one. Right.
There you go.
How have we got on with our conversation?
I think that went pretty well.
That's not bad.
We relatively stayed on topic this time.
Well, we ended up, we went from Judgement to past lives, so it's a journey. It's always unexpected.
Yeah.
And always a pleasure.
Well, this is what our conversations are like. That's why we do this.
Exactly. So we're going to carry on now and just talk more random stuff. And
Over
then
lunch.
Yeah, going to go and have another half calf.
Yeah.
And spot a lunch.
Nice.
Lovely.
Well, happy Friday to you all.
Yeah.
We'll see you at some point next week. We haven't agreed a date yet. We'll do that in a moment.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But thank you for tuning in.
Yes. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.